Welcome to Lesson 6 of Week 12, focusing on triage and streamlining. This lesson examines what it means when your proposal receives the not discussed designation and how to respond constructively to this outcome. Triage, also called streamlining, is a review process mechanism that allocates limited discussion time to the most competitive proposals. Proposals receiving lower preliminary scores from assigned reviewers are not discussed by the full panel. This does not mean reviewers did not read your proposal carefully. It means their initial assessment placed you in the less competitive portion of the applicant pool. Receiving a not discussed outcome is disappointing, but it provides important information. Your proposal had significant weaknesses that prevented it from reaching the competitive threshold. Understanding what this outcome means and how to interpret the feedback you receive helps you respond productively. This lesson explains how triage works, what the not discussed status tells you, how to interpret feedback from triage proposals, and how to make strategic decisions about next steps. By the end, you will understand this particular outcome clearly and know how to move forward constructively. Understanding how triage works helps you interpret the not discussed outcome accurately. The process follows a specific logic designed to use review time efficiently. Preliminary scoring occurs before the panel meeting convenes. Each assigned reviewer reads their proposals carefully and assigns scores based on their individual evaluation. These preliminary scores represent each reviewer's independent assessment before any group discussion influences their judgment. Score ranking orders all proposals in the competition by their preliminary scores. This ranking shows which proposals reviewers assessed most favorably and which they assessed less favorably. The ranking provides the basis for determining which proposals will be discussed and which will be streamlined. Cutoff determination identifies which proposals fall below the threshold for discussion. Typically, proposals in the bottom half of the preliminary score distribution are streamlined. The exact cutoff depends on the number of proposals and available discussion time. Proposals below the cutoff will not be discussed regardless of their individual merits. Discussion allocation reserves panel meeting time for proposals that have realistic funding chances. With limited meeting time and many proposals to consider, panels cannot discuss every application thoroughly. Allocating discussion to competitive proposals ensures those most likely to be funded receive the deliberation they need. Understanding what not discussed actually means prevents misinterpretation of this outcome. The designation has specific implications. Reviewers read your proposal carefully during individual review. Your assigned reviewers received your complete application, read it thoroughly, and evaluated it against all review criteria. The not discussed outcome does not mean your proposal was ignored or given superficial attention. It received the same careful individual review as discussed proposals. Scores were low, meaning preliminary scores from your assigned reviewers fell below the threshold for discussion. This is the key information. Expert reviewers assessed your proposal and found it less competitive than others in your pool. Their scores reflect genuine evaluation of your work against the competition. No panel deliberation occurred for your proposal. The full review panel did not debate your proposal's strengths and weaknesses. Other panel members beyond your assigned reviewers did not weigh in. The discussion that can sometimes shift scores did not happen for your application. Final scores stand as assigned by individual reviewers. Without panel discussion, there is no opportunity for scores to change based on deliberation. The preliminary scores from your assigned reviewers become your final scores. These scores determine your ranking and, in most cases, confirm that your proposal will not be funded in this cycle. Clarifying what not discussed does not mean helps prevent unproductive interpretations that can follow this disappointing outcome. Not unread is important to understand. Your proposal was thoroughly examined by assigned reviewers who spent significant time reading and evaluating your work. Triage is not about skipping proposals, it is about allocating discussion time. Every proposal receives careful individual review regardless of whether it is discussed. Not random means the outcome reflects genuine assessment of quality by expert reviewers. Proposals are not randomly assigned to triage. Reviewers evaluated your work against established criteria and concluded it was less competitive than other applications. This assessment may be disappointing, but it is not arbitrary. Not personal reminds you that triage reflects proposal merit, not your worth as a person or professional. Many accomplished researchers and practitioners submit proposals that are not discussed. The proposal did not compete effectively. That says nothing about your value as a professional or human being. Maintain this crucial distinction. Not final means you can revise and resubmit in future cycles. A not discussed outcome in one cycle does not prevent you from submitting again. You have the opportunity to strengthen your proposal based on feedback and compete again. This outcome is a setback, not a permanent barrier. Even triage proposals generate feedback that can guide improvement. Understanding what feedback you receive helps you use it effectively. Written comments from your assigned reviewers are still provided in your summary statement. Each reviewer documents their assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. These written critiques explain why reviewers scored as they did and identify specific concerns. This feedback is valuable for understanding what went wrong. Criterion scores for each evaluation criterion show how reviewers assess different aspects of your proposal. You can see which areas were relatively stronger and which were weaker. This criterion level information helps prioritize revision efforts on areas that need most improvement. No discussion summary means the compiled summary reflects individual reviews only, not panel deliberation. Since your proposal was not discussed, there is no synthesis of panel perspectives. The feedback you receive comes directly from individual reviewer assessments without the refinement that discussion sometimes provides. Valuable information in your feedback reveals why reviewers scored as they did. Even without discussion, the written comments explain reviewer concerns. Reading this feedback carefully tells you what problems reviewers identified. This information is essential for determining whether revision can address the issues or whether more fundamental changes are needed. Understanding common reasons for triage helps you diagnose what happened with your proposal. These reasons are not mutually exclusive. Multiple factors may apply. Fundamental concerns arise when reviewers question the significance of your research question, the feasibility of your approach, or the soundness of your methods. These are substantive problems with what you proposed, not how you presented it. Fundamental concerns often require reconceptualization rather than revision. Presentation problems occur when unclear writing obscured whatever strengths your proposal had. Reviewers may have struggled to understand your approach, lost track of your logic, or failed to find key information. These problems may mask an otherwise sound proposal. If presentation was the primary issue, clearer writing could significantly improve scores. Competitive pool effects mean a strong competition pushed proposals below the discussion threshold that might have been discussed in a weaker cycle. Your proposal may have had genuine merit but faced particularly strong competition. While this is partly outside your control, it still means your proposal must improve to compete in future cycles. Misalignment occurs when your proposal did not fit funder priorities or review criteria well. Perhaps your topic was peripheral to the funding announcement, or your approach did not address what reviewers were evaluating. Misalignment suggests you may need a different funder or a substantially reframed proposal. Analyzing feedback from a triage proposal requires the same systematic approach as any feedback analysis, with particular attention to severity assessment. Read without defense by absorbing feedback before reacting defensively. The natural response to disappointing news is to find reasons to dismiss criticism. Resist this impulse. Read what reviewers wrote, let it sink in, and only then begin analysis. Defensive reading prevents learning. Identify themes by looking for concerns raised by multiple reviewers independently. When both or all three assigned reviewers flag the same issue, that concern is almost certainly valid. Consensus criticism from triage proposals points to genuine problems that must be addressed. Themes across reviewers deserve highest priority attention. Categorize issues by distinguishing presentation problems from substance problems. Presentation problems involve how you communicated. Substance problems involve what you proposed. This distinction matters because presentation problems suggest revision may help, while substance problems may require reconceptualization. Assess severity to determine whether identified issues are addressable through revision. Triaged proposals often have more severe problems than near-miss proposals. Be honest about whether you can truly address reviewer concerns or whether they point to fundamental problems with your project concept or approach. The severity question is particularly important for triage proposals. Understanding what triage signals about problem severity guides appropriate response. Triage signals that your proposal had significant problems. Proposals receiving not discussed status were not close to the funding threshold. The gap between your scores and fundable scores is typically substantial. This gap indicates that more than minor adjustments are needed to become competitive. Not just tweaks is a critical recognition. Minor revisions rarely rescue triaged proposals. If small changes could have made your proposal competitive, it probably would have scored higher initially. The problems that led to triage are usually substantial enough to require substantial response. Do not expect cosmetic revision to produce dramatic improvement. Honest assessment requires determining whether fundamental changes are needed. Can you truly address what reviewers identified as problems? Do you have the resources, data, or expertise to fix the issues? Is the basic concept sound but poorly presented, or is the concept itself problematic? Honest answers guide appropriate strategy. Resource consideration weighs revision effort against likely return. Substantial revision takes significant time and energy. If your honest assessment suggests the proposal needs fundamental reconceptualization, that investment might be better directed toward a new project rather than salvaging one that did not resonate with reviewers. After triage, you have several strategic options. Choosing wisely depends on your honest assessment of what went wrong and what you can realistically do about it. Major revision substantially strengthens the proposal for resubmission to the same funder. This option makes sense when your basic concept is sound but execution was flawed. If reviewers would likely respond favorably to a significantly improved version, revision is worthwhile. This requires honest belief that you can make the necessary improvements. New approach develops a different project addressing similar goals. Sometimes the specific approach you proposed was problematic, but your underlying goals remain valid. A fresh project design might succeed where your original approach did not. This option requires more work than revision, but may have better prospects. Different funder means finding an alternative funder better suited to your work. Perhaps your proposal was not well aligned with this particular funder's priorities or review criteria. A different funder might be more receptive. Investigate alternative funding sources that might be better matches. Redirect entirely means pursuing different funding priorities altogether. If the project that was triaged is not salvageable and alternative funders are not available, your resources might be better invested in entirely different work. Sometimes letting go is the wisest response to feedback. Certain conditions suggest revision of a triage proposal is worthwhile. All of these conditions should apply for revision to make sense. Core concept valid means reviewers did not fundamentally question your premise or research question. If reviewers accepted that your work matters and could succeed, but had concerns about execution or presentation, the foundation for successful revision exists. If reviewers questioned whether your work matters at all, revision is less promising. Problems addressable means you can genuinely fix the issues reviewers identified. You have the data they wanted, can add the expertise they found lacking, or can clarify the explanations they found confusing. Abstract willingness to improve is not enough. You need concrete capability to address specific concerns. Commitment remains means you still believe in this work and want to pursue it. Revision takes significant effort. If the project no longer excites you or circumstances have changed, that effort might be better directed elsewhere. Pursue revision because you genuinely want this project to succeed, not from obligation to past effort. Resources available means you have what you need to make substantial improvements. Time to do significant revision work, access to additional data or expertise, and organizational support for another attempt. Without adequate resources, revision intentions will not translate to actual improvement. Sometimes the wisest response to triage is moving on rather than revising. Recognizing when to redirect your efforts protects your resources and mental energy. Fundamental rejection means reviewers questioned your basic premise or the significance of your work. When expert reviewers do not believe your research question matters or doubt your intervention can work, Their concerns are difficult to overcome through revision. Fundamental rejection often signals that this particular project is not viable. Unfixable problems exist when identified issues cannot realistically be addressed. Perhaps reviewers wanted expertise your team cannot add, preliminary data you cannot generate, or resources you cannot access. If you cannot actually fix what reviewers identified as problems, revision will not help. Be honest about your capabilities. Changed circumstances mean the project no longer makes sense for your situation. Perhaps key personnel have left, organizational priorities have shifted, or the field has moved in different directions. Even if the project could be revised successfully, it may no longer be the right project for you now. Better opportunities exist when other projects offer more promising paths forward. Your time and energy are finite. A triage proposal represents one possible investment of your resources. If other projects have better prospects, directing effort toward those alternatives may be wiser than struggling to salvage something that struggled in review. Consulting your program officer after triage can provide valuable guidance. This conversation helps you make informed decisions about next steps. Appropriate after triage confirms that contacting your PO to discuss results is acceptable and often welcomed. POs want to fund good work. Helping applicants improve serves their mission. They can provide context and guidance that summary statements alone cannot offer. Reach out professionally to request a conversation. Questions to ask include whether revision is worthwhile given your specific scores and feedback, what changes would most improve your competitiveness, whether the fundamental concept is sound, and whether this program remains a good fit for your work. POs may have insights about your proposal and the competition that help you decide how to proceed. Realistic expectations recognize that POs provide guidance, not guarantees. They cannot promise that revision will lead to funding. They can offer perspective on what they observed and suggest directions for improvement. Take their guidance seriously while understanding that ultimate decisions and outcomes remain uncertain. Professional relationship building uses this consultation to develop an ongoing connection with the PO. Even if this particular proposal does not succeed, a positive professional relationship may benefit future applications. POs who know you and your work may be more helpful as you develop subsequent proposals. The emotional response to triage deserves acknowledgement. This outcome can be particularly discouraging, and handling the emotional dimension matters for your well-being and future success. Disappointment is normal when receiving not discussed status. You invested significant effort in your proposal, believed in your project, and hoped for success. Learning that reviewers found your work insufficiently competitive is discouraging. Allow yourself to feel disappointed without judging yourself for the emotion. Avoid spiral thinking that lets one outcome define your capabilities. A triaged proposal does not mean you are a poor grant writer or that you will never succeed. It means this particular proposal at this particular time did not compete successfully. That is a single data point, not a comprehensive assessment of your abilities. Perspective helps because many successful professionals have had proposals triaged. Look at accomplished researchers and practitioners in your field. Nearly all have experienced this outcome. Triage is common in competitive funding environments. You are not uniquely flawed. You are experiencing something most grant seekers encounter. Forward motion channels disappointment into productive action. Once you have processed the initial emotional reaction, redirect that energy toward improvement. Analyze your feedback, make strategic decisions, and take action. Moving forward is more productive than dwelling in disappointment. Triage, while disappointing, provides learning opportunities that benefit future submissions. Extracting lessons from this experience improves your long-term success. Valuable data from triage tells you something about your competitive position and proposal quality. You now know that your work, as submitted, did not meet the threshold for serious funding consideration. This information, while unwelcome, is useful for calibrating your efforts and expectations. Skill development comes from analyzing why you were triaged, working through your feedback, diagnosing problems, and identifying what would need to change builds your grant development expertise. Each unsuccessful proposal you analyze thoroughly makes you a better grant writer. The analysis itself is valuable skill building. Future prevention becomes possible when you understand what went wrong. If presentation problems undermined your proposal, you know to invest more in clarity. If misalignment was the issue, you know to assess fit more carefully. If fundamental concept problems arose, you know to stress test your ideas more rigorously. Understanding causes prevents repetition. Organizational learning multiplies the value of your experience. Share what you learned with colleagues who can benefit from your insights. What tripped you up might trip up others. Contributing to organizational knowledge helps everyone improve. Let us summarize the key points from this lesson on triage and streamlining. Triage means your proposal had significant problems that placed it below the discussion threshold. This outcome signals that more than minor adjustments are needed. However, triage reflects proposal merit, not your personal worth or professional capabilities. Many successful professionals have triage proposals in their histories. Feedback value persists even for triage proposals. You still receive written reviewer comments and criterion scores that explain why reviewers assessed your work as they did. This feedback guides decisions about next steps and provides valuable learning opportunities. Extract maximum value from the feedback you receive. Strategic choice follows triage analysis. Based on your honest assessment of feedback and circumstances, decide whether to substantially revise and resubmit, pursue a different approach to similar goals, find a different funder, or redirect your efforts entirely. Make this choice strategically, not emotionally. In our next lesson, we examine resubmission strategy in depth. You will learn how to decide whether resubmission makes sense, how to approach revision effectively, and how to maximize your chances of success in subsequent attempts. Practice exercise. If you have received a not discussed outcome on a previous submission, retrieve that feedback and analyze it using the framework from this lesson. Categorize the issues, assess their severity, and consider what strategic choice you would make now with the perspective this lesson provides.